Welcome to Battle Brothers 40K, a podcast dedicated to all things glorious in the grim darkness of the far future. My name is Alex.
My name is Vangel.
All right, guys. This is a new show for both me and my brother. I've done previous shows before, Splinter Mind with Brian in years past, a dedicated Drukari show. Infinity Circuit Radio, which is ongoing with Wes, but is a bit more sporadic in our uploads just because of time zones in the Atlantic Ocean. And now Battle Brothers 40K is a project that I'm doing alongside my brother. I'm super excited to be doing this. I've been in the hobby for a very long time, whether it being a playtester since 8th edition until they dissolved my glorious playtesting group sometime after the Guard Codex, and commission painter for Frontline Gaming. And just I've been in the hobby since 2nd edition, and this is a new 40K journey. I'm excited to be taking it with my brother.
Yeah, happy to be here. This is a project a long time in the making, very long time, maybe 15 years or something like that. We've been talking about putting together a podcast and YouTube channel. I'm really happy to be here myself and be able to represent myself and correct any of the misrepresentations that have been passed through the megaverse. Okay, so my name is Vangel. I'm a longtime Imperial Guard player, commander of the Cadian 6th Regiment. I've been in the hobby for more than 20 years, starting in 2nd edition. I took a hiatus and came back in 5th edition, but my favorite parts of the hobby are collecting and building my army, as well as building terrain and in-depth scenery for gameplay.
Yeah, I've talked about this many times. There are some really funny episodes on Splinter Mind where I was breaking down just what it was like doing terrain projects with this guy.
Invigorating.
Yes, but yeah, it's been a huge part. The all the things that we've done together have actually been a huge part of my Warhammer journey. I definitely would not be play testing or have gotten noticed online if it wasn't for my brother. This isn't in the notes or anything like that, but he really encouraged me to join Frontline Gaming as a commissioned painter when Reese reached out to me way back in the day. I was very hesitant to do it about taking on 40K professionally. I didn't want to sort of like rob my joy of the game, but it was the complete opposite. It completely transformed how I interact with the game, and I don't think I'd be trying to like live that sort of white dwarf lifestyle with 40K if it wasn't sort of for that moment, like taking that walk that one day.
Yeah, and same for me here right now. I know listeners are going to be familiar with my brother Alex because he's my brother too. Um, but for myself, this podcast and YouTube channel is a little bit of a different journey. Putting myself in the spotlight and holding myself accountable to what we're talking about here. Like I said, my interest in the game has been building the most glorious Imperial Guard army of all time, and also having the most amazing Warhammer board and terrain of all time. But now I'm going to be taking a different approach and really focusing on gameplay and a lot of the details, which I'll be sharing with you guys. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and sort of to that point, I think that's like what 10th edition definitely represents to me. It's an opportunity to embrace all that stuff that you were just talking about. When I was during 8th edition and 9th edition, being a play tester and commission painter, and just my like involvement in Splinter Mind and various things, like it had me very slanted in like one direction, which was definitely just matched play. Like I was really, just looking to have that like peak match play experience, like finely tuned armies, making like, being a play tester, just hawking the game balance like across like the entire Warhammer community, just really like obsessing as a play tester about the tabletop lore sort of translate the lore translating to the tabletop and stuff like that. But now that I'm not a playtester anymore, and 10th edition is this whole simplified, not simple, I think it's time to just sort of embrace my roots as a 40K player in terms of what originally drew me to the game. Like, what was it that I wanted to do when I first got into 40K? And the beginning of an edition is a great time to sort of do that.
Yeah, I would say that for myself, and this isn't saying that this podcast is all because of me or something like that. My brother's definitely had this point of view as well. But this podcast is sort of what my vision for 40K has always been like. I have not been involved in the controversy of releases and release.
Balance.
Yeah, well, I mean, to an extent, I have, but I'm not anyone vocal online. You'll never see me jumping in the chat rooms and getting into the nitty gritty. But I was definitely there because of Alex's play testing, and I played and play tested the rules as they came out as well. But I wasn't committed to like a consensus online, and that's really, I think, in a large part what this podcast is going to be about. It's about the fact that we don't need a consensus. We just need to be enjoying the game that we're playing. And so, yeah, that's what we're hoping to bring to you guys, and helping to foster and encourage in the Warhammer community.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we want to be like a resource, like a very practical resource for like what I basically consider like the sort of my fundamentals of 40K, and just everything that I've learned throughout like this entire like 40K journey. I know that sounds like cheesy to say, but I mean it has been a journey. Like starting off at a local store. The store owner was he was a multiple time Golden Demon winner. His army was featured. I think it was in White Dwarf, like 212, the one with that debuted Sister of Battle, Sisters of Battle, with his epic Ultramarines army and his like Talarn, Hellhound. So I mean, starting there and then like eventually being someone involved with like coming up with rules, having my name printed in the codexes, my playtesting team being featured in the codex has been wild. But like I'm sort of like shuffling like a good deal of that off to the side, not because it wasn't valuable or I didn't love it. Like I did. Like those were awesome times. But like right now, like with 10th edition, like what I want to do is sort of embrace like 40K as an event. 9th edition was super granular. It was really swingy, and it felt like it was just rules upon rules upon rules. And like I want to throw all that crap out the window. And 10th edition seems suited to that, and embrace this concept of 40K as an event, like each game as an event, whether it be like armies, terrain, the objectives of the missions that you're playing, the missions themselves, and campaigns. And how do you make that into an event? Like, what do we mean by an event? And we're going to sort of break that down today. So, starting off with like armies, this was like a classic Splintermind topic that we sort of bounced around like many times, like especially towards the end. There was like a lot of conversations swirling around like narrative play, themed armies, and like what exactly that means to us. And for me, like I like what you were saying, dude, about the not having like consensus. Like all I'm interested is bringing like the story of my army to the table. So like I know that my 10th edition list, for example, I don't care that like the Wraith Knight and the D cannon platforms and all this stuff are like the hottest thing in the universe. Like I'm playing a Corsair list now, with a little splash of Harlequins in there because number one, Corsairs are awesome again, And number two, that's like what my entire collection is predicated on. So I have like as many Hornets and Warp Hunters, the Lynx, actually using the Vizark and Ivrain because there's a Yanari theme running through my army. So I could not be more excited to just be like, you know what, I don't care how good this is. If I think it can, perform well on the table, I'm going to run it. I mean, I'm not going to run something that's absolute trash, but I'm going to make sure that like my army accurately reflects the lore as I see it. And I'm not trying to convince anybody. Like I know like what I'm going for, and in each game, like I want to bring that flavor to the table, and like my unit selections and all of that, I think are really going to reflect it.
Something that I'm excited about in terms of the podcast and in terms of the YouTube channel that we have coming is to feature the army that I've been building for so many years. I would definitely say I'm an Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum purist. The only time I strayed from that was to make an Imperial Knight, and also I had a small Revilers army that I've since decommissioned. But my army, in terms of creating a narrative, I guess I should say, like, the way I built my army in terms of creating a narrative was to make it well rounded so that as different editions came out, that I could flex and use different units. I'm not planning on bringing trash. I'm not planning on leaving the big guns at home in terms of any OP rules or whatever. Like, we have to embrace both sides of the spectrum and really just say, hey, this is the army that I'm playing. This is the build that I want. This is the mission. This is the campaign. This is what this calls for. And fuck it. I'm going to bring it, and we're going to play this game the way it was meant to be played. And Alex and I are going to be outlining missions as well as our army builds and the choices that we're making in the podcast, but also in the YouTube channel, which will feature our armies and give you a good idea of the vision that we have for the game.
Yeah, and definitely like to that point, even though I'm going like pretty strong narrative, I mean, it's like a very strong narrative for my list. It's like I'm bringing the Warp Hunters. I know they're really good, but those are the classic Corsair battle tanks. That was one of the reasons I started Corsairs is when those models came out, and I painted three, having no idea what their rules are going to look like in 10th edition. Same thing with the Hornets. Like they're wicked good in whatever it's called, the Warhost detachment for Eldari. So I mean, I'm not taking Wraith Knights, but I am taking all that stuff. So it's really good, but I mean, so is that IG shit. Just like you were saying, you're taking a lot of indirect fire, and I'm just gonna have to deal with it. Just like you're gonna have to deal with the fact that I've got re-rollable Bright Lances left, right, and center all over my army.
Something I want to talk about and give some voice to is my perspective, not being a rules doctor. I don't have a PhD in Warhammer rules, but I do just want to say that, like, given my perspective that I mentioned, I was a play tester and I've been on the outside of every single one of the things that Alex has been into in terms of Warhammer. Like, I've seen the roller coaster of this thing is in fashion now. It's the most amazing thing. Don't break your neck with whiplash, but we're going in the other direction. And, I've seen the seasons, ebb and flow, as it were. So I think that we should aim to build well-rounded armies and also just play the units that we love and play what's appropriate for the mission. So, yep. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I don't know if we want to go into like the 3 units that we're excited about in 10th edition now.
Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
All right.
I'll go first. I mean, straight up, Like I know the sort of like consensus in the Eldari community is a little bit mixed, but I'm running Corsair Void Scarred with power swords. I'm actually taking a big unit of 10. I'm attaching the Vizark and Evrain to them, and I'm taking all the special characters in there as well. So I actually think these guys are really, really good. With 3 attacks each, strength 4 power swords, that's really solid. That AP is hard to find, and they've got it. They also have, what is that rule? Oh yeah, they've got lethal hits and precision. They can target one. Each unit can target one unit per game, and they get those universal special rules against them. And I'm envisioning these guys as sort of like late game closers. So I have all of like my sort of shooting elements just really rocking the opponent in the first few phases of the game, and then these the Corsairs are coming out of a Wave Serpent, and I'm going to have them supported by Howling Banshees for sort of deeper penetration into enemy lines. Excuse,
Ooh,
got a little Slaneshi there, but that's okay. It's Eldari, makes sense.
it does make sense. Is it okay?
No.
Ask yourself that question.
It wasn't okay. But these guys actually have a lot of nasty tricks. So with precision, I'm also taking the D cannon. So that means I can target characters with a D cannon. The Wayseeker, the Void Dreamer, as I call him, also has that really awesome Executioner ability, which is anti-infantry 2+, strength 6, AP -2, and D3 damage each. So even though these power swords are only damage 1, they are power swords. They've got 3 attacks each. You've got this 18-inch Executioner psychic attack going off, which is 3 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 6, -2 AP, D3 damage, with the Vizark and Evrain buried in there, and Evrain's Whisper of Storms is absolutely nasty. So with just these 3 little mini characters sort of sprinkled into this unit, you have a ton of shooting coming out of this melee unit, and on top of it all, you've got lethal hits, so you're auto wounding on 6s to hit, and you have precision. And the Vizark also has precision. I guess you would gain it from using this unit, but you can really fish out those enemy warlords or those enemy characters too. So I think this unit is really, really cool. And they got to ignore cover because you've got the Falchu in there. The Soul Weaver is reducing like 1 attack per turn to 0 damage. I mean, I think these guys sound absolutely awesome. I was more interested in them just from their like offensive output, but they've got a lot of really cool abilities mixed in there. So they're the first unit that I'm covering today, and they're definitely going to be the backbone of my army going into this.
All right. Well, I'll trade off and talk about a unit that is not new to 10th edition, but that would be new to my army is the Kasrkins. So just revealing that long in the tooth, as they say, I'm hearkening back to the days when we had veterans, and I had built huge collections for veterans. But obviously in the last 2 editions, the current and the previous, veterans do not exist. So many of my models sat by the wayside. But and this is like a discussion I'd like to have at another time, just talking about like the coming and going of different units and the expense, the monetary expense that we as players put into the army, and the reason for all the rage and all of that kind of stuff. I want to talk about that, but in a later podcast. But so the Kasrkins, why am I excited for it? Like I said, I'm a long-term Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard player. I've got 3 battalions, 1 Cadian, 1 Catachan, and 1 Bloodsucker Battalion. That's what I call them, the Bloody Shoulder. And essentially the Bloody Shoulder is the hostile environment Cadians, and I set them up with
From Forge World.
yeah, Forge World models. Sorry. So they all are. That was supposed to be my veteran battalion that would go up the board and get down and dirty with people. But in the last few editions, I really didn't have the option to do that. So I'm excited for 10th edition and the Kasrkins because of the deep strike rules. And in previous, basically in all editions of the game previous, I was like the castle king. I would castle up my artillery, then my battle tanks, my Leman Russes, my demolishers. Then I would bubble wrap them in my infantry and wait for them to come and get me, because playing against Eldar or Eldari, I'm really showing my age here. Playing against the Eldar, you can't chase them around the board. You're not going to be able to. So what I'm excited about here is like a hard-hitting infantry unit that's going to be able to deep strike. They're going to be able to get where I need them to go, and they're going to be able to bust them up, because I've got my Bloodsucker battalion armed with 3 plasma guns each, and with all of them shooting hotshot las guns and the Born Soldiers rule. They're gonna get in there and dice it up. And I also have this is not on my top 3, but I also have a lot of fast attack units that are going to create a really expanded dimension for my army that I haven't been able to play in previous editions, or I just haven't played in previous editions. So yeah, Kasrkins I'm really stoked about. Also getting into the narrative aspect of the game. I know this is nothing new for anyone else, but I really love the idea of the Meltamine. Just one of them in a game going kaboom on something, I am excited about. So yeah, I want to talk about this. It's just like really sad that veterans went away. I'm sure that many Astra Militarum players were. So what do you do? That's what you're going to see in future podcasts and episodes, is like my adaptation to the rules as they come, and, not getting negative about it, but just saying like, okay, how can I adapt? How can I make what I have work? And what will be exciting and enjoyable for me. So yeah, Kasrkins. I also want to explain, I was not without rage in the last editions. My brother's like, hey, why don't you run Kasrkins? I was like, fuck no, never running that crap. It's not in my army. This is the Bloodsucker battalion. We don't go for that. But here we are, and I'm going to make the most of it and adapt. And so, yeah, Kasrkins are in for me.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I'm thinking, because like one of the units that's been like a real bane for you, at least when we've been playing, is jet bikes. And like those plasma guns and those hotshot las guns, deep striking, trying to get after Wind Riders, sort of like hiding in the back lines. It's actually pretty nasty. And I definitely anticipate for, non-Eldari, just anybody encountering Eldar.
This isn't an Eldari podcast, people. I just hope everyone understands that, okay? This is a 40K podcast. This is my podcast. I'm the master of all.
But jet bikes are really good. And
I was thinking about the Hornets.
Well,
I need to... The big thing for me is that, like, I've got my artillery, I've got my tanks, I've got my castle. That's always going to be a staple of my army. I shouldn't say always, because depending on the narrative, I might switch things up. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be the heart of my army unless the mission dictates otherwise. And so what I'm looking to do is just offset. All I need to do is make your units move in the back line. That's all I care about with some of these forward moving units, forward deep striking units.
Yeah, because you've never had anything to sort of set the pace. Like
There's nothing I have that can flank aside
Yeah.
from a Vendetta or a Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vendetta or a Vulture.
Yeah, and the days of the fly. I mean, I don't know if you plan on taking them now, but like
I plan on getting super heavy flyers, everybody. That's going to happen.
And we'll talk about this in a future episode. I actually want to talk about flyers. I haven't talked to you about this. I actually talked to Wes about it. I've got a really cool idea for flyers, but yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. Like, it'll be cool to see like a more dynamic element to a more offensive element for you.
Yeah, I mean, I am. You'll hear in my next two choices. I'm someone who loves artillery, who loves heavy weapons, who loves the backfield, who loves to just annihilate and be the scourge of witches across the galaxy. But it becomes like a one-dimensional thing.
Yeah, like a dirty Tau player.
Whoa. Wow. Sorry to all you Tau players. But yeah, I feel like for myself, the collection sort of reached a critical point in terms of having a castle army. Like, I've got that now. And that was the first thing that I decided. But playing against the Eldari, it becomes just like, how can I like weasel them out of their hole? You know, how can I like smoke them out? And I really didn't have the ability in previous editions, mostly because of the deep strike rules and because of like I've got to march across the board to get to you.
I'm just getting like massacred by scatter lasers and stuff like that,
or like them trying to massacre me, failing miserably.
You remember
it's just a struggle, I guess I would just say. It's like a slight struggle, like a sunburn, like a slight irritation as I march across the battlefield.
It's interesting that you say sunburn, because it's like, what did you name your chimera? I think those chimeras are called Fireball, because that's what they end up in every fucking game.
Oh, no. That's bull squat. I can tell you. The only reason we named them Fireball, and I can't remember the other name, it was Fireball and whatever, is because they were, and I'm going to warn all my Imperial Guard players. Yeah, I'm fucking old. I'm talking about Imperial Guard. Okay, not this Astra military shit. Yeah, it's like, don't glue your weapon options down. Anyways, I got two Chimera, and they both have heavy flamers, hull mounted and turret mounted. What a mistake.
Can't get those things out.
I'm going to talk about, you can't get them out. Believe me, I tried. We're going to talk about that in my third option. Alex, my brother, would you care to talk about your second option?
Yeah. All right. Talk about one of my favorite units. And for Splinter Mind and Infinity Circuit Radio guys, I'm not going to talk about the Hornets. I'm going to save that for the other show. We're going to dedicate an entire episode to them. Just kidding. Kind of. Warp Hunters. Warp Hunter is really fucking good. It's lost a couple of things. It's not an artillery piece anymore. But, I mean, 24-inch artillery made no sense. I love the guy who did that Imperial Armor book previously. I will go to my grave saying Warp Hunter should be 36-inch range. Just saying. But it's your basic Falcon chassis. It's movement 14, toughness 9. It's got 12 wounds, OC3. But what you're really interested in is the gun. So you got the D-Flail. It's 24-inch range, blast, devastating wounds, D3 shots, 3 hits on 3s, strength 12, minus 4 AP, which is nasty, and damage 3. It also has flamer mode, devastating wounds, torrent, so it's automatically hitting. It's D3 shots though, so it's not totally oppressive. Strength 12, minus 4, still 3 damage, and so also really cool about it, it has the devastating assault rule. In your shooting phase, after this model is shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. That unit must take a battle shock test, and battle shock is a major thing. So obviously, if you're battle shocked, your units can't receive stratagems. So even if you're not killing these units, they're being forced to take battle shock tests. So taking 3 warp hunters, even if you're like dumping shots into, I don't know, like a big blob of terminators or something like that, and if you take them in multiples, you're forcing battle shock, which can really turn the game around. But yeah, it's not the most amazing unit, but I mean, devastating wounds, mortal wounds with a strength 12 -4, 3 damage stat line. I mean, that's sick. So, I mean, you got to get down and dirty. As Brian and I used to say, you got to go into honey badger mode with these things, where you're rushing them out. I think they're designed to be taken in multiples, like hunting as a pack, like really getting after it with either tanks or infantry. With their stat line, you can go for either, which is great. That versatility is always something you're searching for as an Eldar player, where everything is so specialized. This is a good generalist unit. It's fluffy as hell for fucking Corsairs. It's one of the coolest models in the Eldar range, and I'm thrilled to be taking it. It's also it's relatively cheap. I think it's 130 points. I think it's 5 more points or 10 more points on a Fire Prism, and well, the Fire Prism might be better. The Warp Hunter's fucking cooler, and those devastating wounds are nasty. So super stoked.
The second unit that I'm really excited about for 10th edition is an old standby for me. I think it was one of the first tanks that I ever bought, if not the, well, no. The first tank I ever bought was a Leman Russ Demolisher, which I painted in 2nd edition fully, which
Metal
I'm very
turret.
proud of. Where the hell is it? I don't know. But the unit that I'm excited about in 10th edition is a Basilisk. So plans, yeah, spoiler alert, I'm going to have 3 of every tank in my army. So whatever you hear me talk about, I'm looking for a squadron. So the Basilisk, I have 2 currently. I'm looking at getting a third one, a Forge Rolled one. I don't care if it gets discontinued.
Really?
Yes.
You're gonna get the Forge Roll
The
one.
Minotaur, the double
Oh,
Basilisk.
okay.
As well as different bits. And even if the Minotaur is just like eye candy to be the leader of the squadron, it's something I want to do. I've always wanted that unit.
Nice.
So yeah, reasons why I'm excited. Like I said, like it's sentimental for me. Also, I've raged about the Basilisk for 1,000 years in terms of its like hit or miss abilities. Also, I just want to talk about something really quick. 240-inch range on this gun in 10th edition, and like no love, because when are you going to play on a board that big? So it really should bring the boom fire to everything, and everyone should know that the Earthshaker cannon is firing. Like, your troops should not be able to walk through it. So some things I'm excited about are the Expert Bombardier rule and what it brings to the game. I've got Vox units in every single troop in my army.
Nice.
I've always done that, and I'm really excited about that aspect because it really brings like a strategic element of play to the game. Like, you need to arrange your troops, even if you're bubble wrapping, like you need to have lanes of fire visible to your Vox units in order to make your Basilisks effective, and to hinder the enemy as they approach. Toughness went up from a 7 to a 9. The strength of their Earthshaker cannon went down slightly, but I think that with Expert Bombardiers basically eliminating the indirect fire penalty that there is in 10th edition, like that's what I'm looking for. Just a little bit of love for artillery fire, the stuff that the Astra Militarum is built on. I'll talk about this probably in another episode, but my army builds based on range of fire. and you start from the backfield and you work your way forwards. Like if you get these big guns to the front line, like they should be really bringing the heat to the enemy, and making them redirect their forces. And unfortunately, in 40K, you don't get to cash in on the fact that there's a 240-inch range. So I'm excited about the rules for indirect fire. I know there's going to be a lot of haters, a lot of people who are spazzing out because they're reading the tabloids, as they say.
Bunch of sweaty bastards.
They're sweaty bastards, the stinky motherfuckers are drinking the Kool-Aid. But really, like, hey, guess what? It's your day in the sun for now. It could just be short-lived. Who knows? But make the most of it. But just play in good spirit. That's the only thing I'll say about it. Like, I have 2 basilisks. I have the Manticore and which one is it?
The Wyvern?
The Wyvern, thank you. And I'm not bringing all of them to every single army, every single battle.
Not, cheesy bastard.
And cheesing. I got stinkier cheese than that I'm going to bring for my third option. But yeah, just excited to see like indirect fire get some love. Because it's basically like a gun on tracks. Like it doesn't do much more than that. It really should be able to fuck some shit up. And if it can't do that, like why are we even fielding it? So
yeah, totally, dude. Like people are freaking out about Desolator Marines. Whatever. I hope they fix Desolator Marines. But dude, you should be afraid of the Basilisk. Like you should get punished by Manticores and Basilisks. Come on, have you guys like read these fucking Horus Heresy books? I mean, this shit is tearing you up, and it should be. You should be afraid. Like that's why I'm like what I never like. Oh, dude, can you take some artillery out of your list? Hell no.
Yeah.
Like adjust. Like when I play against Imperial Guard, if an Eldari army went up against Imperial Guard, they'd be mech'd up. They'd be in Wave Serpents. They can't run Guardians on foot against Imperial Guard. They should get wrecked.
I also just want to say, like, for all the people who love WYSIWYG, like, what you see is what you get. That Basilisk cannon is the biggest fucking gun you're going to see. Like, I don't even know. Aside from Bane Blades, you're not going to see a bigger cannon.
Or like the Tau Railgun or something like that.
It should bring fear to your opponent. Like, even if they're all mech'd up and they got all their stuff, that thing should be able to stop something. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Just because it's been like, I played with those things even when they sucked.
Yeah.
And totally like ripped my hair out while in the first turn they did nothing. But I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. I'm gonna give it a shot. And you guys are gonna see what that's all like as we play.
Yeah, I'm definitely afraid of them. Like my army composition going into this campaign we've got planned is definitely bearing them in mind. But, sometimes there's nothing you can do. You're going to just have to take the L from those guys.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. The way it should be. I mean, like, in terms of mobility, Astra Militarum takes the L. Yeah. Like, we need to know that we're going to get flanked, that units are going to move out of line of sight. They're going to maneuver in such a way that we're not going to be able to reform our line. They should know also that hell is raining down on them from above. Yeah. The Emperor watches over all of the sons of Cadia. I mean, he's got your number. He's got a few wooden posts to put your witches on. Light them up. Make some s'mores and call it a day. So, yeah.
Yeah. Totally stoked to play against that. Should be a good game. The range game is going to be intriguing in 10th edition for sure. Really briefly, did I have the links over here? No, I guess it was. Yep. It was. Let me talk about the links. It's either the links or the Visarch I was going to talk about. I'll talk about the links. It's a little bit more esoteric, and I haven't talked about it on Infinity Circuit Radio yet. But yeah, I'm super stoked for the links. It's 155 points, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really good. So The Lynx Pulsar is 48-inch range. It's strength 16, 4 shots, -3 AP, D6 damage. And what I love about it is each time this model advances, do not make an advance roll for it. Instead, until the end of the movement phase, add 9 inches to the characteristics of this model. That couples with the fact that the Lynx Pulsar is assault. So you're going, what is it? 23 inches with the Lynx and shooting with no penalty. That is money. So the Lynx is a big model. It's long, but it's weird because it's not tall. It actually sits lower than any of the other grav tanks, so it can really get behind terrain really well. If you can get something to just sort of block its length, you're good to go. And this thing can basically fly to any corner of the battlefield and lay down shots at 48-inch range. 4 shots, the 6 shots it had previous were really, really good. I would have sort of taken that profile if it was just like a Bright Lance, but 4 shots at strength 16, it's basically like a fire prism. It's like 2 fire prisms in one at 155 points. It also has a 5+ invulnerable save, which is nasty. With Strands of Fate and the rerolls per unit, it's really, really good. And you can take a Bright Lance on top of that. So, although you can't advance and shoot that Bright Lance, but it's all about that Lynx Pulsar. And again, it screams Corsairs. That is the Corsair Super Heavy for all intents and purposes. It's the big gun. It basically, took apart a Revenant Titan, just took its gun, mounted it on this, sort of elongated Falcon chassis, and it's a great centerpiece model, and it's a great centerpiece for the sort of Eldar tanks, your Eldar gun line, and I'm super stoked to throw it down on the table.
So an answer to that, or actually, this is an answer to my answer. Alex bought the Lynx, I think, in order to counter my third choice. The thing I'm most excited about.
Rogal Dorn?
The Shadow Sword.
Oh, shit. Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
Indeed. All right, so the Shadow Sword is going to be the crown of my army. Like I said, I'm a backfield player. Although I've created my Baneblade with the most magnets of any model that I've ever created. So I've optimized the Baneblade to be able to house all 8 different options of Baneblade. But my first choice is going to be the Shadow Sword with a weapon of a Warlord Titan. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. This, I'll mention right now, is going to be my hobby commitment for our next podcast, meaning I'm going to finish painting it entirely for our next podcast. But yeah, super excited about it. It's the biggest tank I own. It's the biggest customized model that I've created. Yeah, just super stoked about it. I'm ready to blow some shit up. Like, first thing it hits, it's going to just smash, and I'm stoked about it. Let's see. Going down some of the stats here. Toughness is up 4 points from 9 to 13. Wounds have dropped 6 points, which is sad. But the strength of the Volcano Cannon went up 6 points. It's going to be
so awesome.
There won't be a dry eye across the table from me when this thing is done. So, very excited about that. And basically, there's nothing else that I need to get for my army in terms of backfield. And that's something I'm really excited about, like being done with the build that I've been working on for so long. To touch again, like, on the spirit of the game from my perspective is like I'm building a very well-rounded army, but first it has to do one thing well regardless of the edition that I'm playing. And so that foundation, I mean, this thing is the bedrock. Like, the other exciting aspect, which I talked about earlier, was breaking enemy lines. and the capacity for the Baneblade to be a transport and drop off the Bloodsucker Battalion is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit.
Really? That you're thinking about doing your veterans and the Casterkins in there?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, the Casterkins. Yes,
Not Bulgrin?
we got other plans.
Oh,
We got some different
oh
ideas
shit! This
happening.
guy's got some other ideas.
Yeah, man. Wait, so we've got the Casterkins. So I think like 2 or 3 of the Baneblade variants have the ability to drop 25 models on the other side of the board, and I could deep strike that one tank, and deliver a force that needs to be reckoned with behind the enemy
Yeah,
lines.
using rapid ingress. Yeah. Wow.
So if I can offset the castle that I've built on my deployment zone, then I'm going to split the enemy line.
That's some Talarn level bullshit right there.
That was what in the last edition I was planning on using my BBs or the Bloodsucker Battalion. I've got to figure out what name to call them so you guys know what I'm talking about.
The
But
Casterkins.
yeah, in this version, I guess they're going to be called the Casterkins, but they'll always be Bloodsucker Battalion to me, bro, because they're veterans, son. But anyways, yeah, we'll call them Casterkins. Okay, so the Casterkins are going to arrive on the enemy lines, potentially in a transport variant of the Baneblade.
The Stormlord, right?
There's a few different versions.
That
So
Stormlord is fucking scary.
I'm vetting them all, and I need to paint them all because that's an important part of this show and the podcast and the YouTube channel. Is like we're not putting anything up that's not painted. And yeah, it's painstaking and yeah, it's brutal, but guess what? It's 40K, motherfucker. Get with it.
And it's for the Emperor.
That's right. So, back to my third choice, Shadow Sword. Really excited about it. Ready to smash some shit and just like, be excited about this crowning jewel. That's what it is for my army, and that's why I'm excited about it.
And to your point, talking about the Baneblade, what's fucking awesome about it, the Shadow Sword, is that in this edition of the game, it's a legit Titan Hunter. And as it turns out, we are dedicated to campaign play in 10th edition. We're going to be using the Imperial Armor 11 campaign, Volume 1, that actually had the missions. GW, why the fuck did you take them out in version 2? Those missions are awesome. And this sort of like ties into 40K as an event, because in the original Imperial Armor 11, it calls for Apocalypse games. Basically, I think it's in mission 3 and mission 4. So in those missions, we're going to have to, like, it tells you, like, hey, bring out your super heavies for those missions. And this is like, I think this is like the focus of the show. This is what we're hyped about for 10th edition, but all of that hype is being channeled into like a really strong narrative. And the two of us, we are super short on time. We're looking to have something that is really fun that we can look forward to. I'm sure so many of you guys out there are just like, man, I need something fun to look forward to, something that will take me completely out of all my troubles at work, life, etc. And if you sort of boil 40K down to like what you were excited to do in the hobby when you first got into it, it was about amazing fucking battles. When you read that lore, it was about war on a scale that you couldn't even conceive. Like, I'm reading the Siege of Terra series right now, and I'm absolutely blown away. I'm like, this is why I got into 40K, and that's what we want to do on the tabletop. I don't give a shit about these random pickup games and all this other stuff. And like, hey, if you have like an awesome, vibrant pickup scene at your local store or your club or whatever, totally just go out and have like an absolute blast. But for me, there's so much time and investment and planning and painting and all this other stuff that goes into 40K. I, for me, like, why not just take that like teeny tiny little step and do that same thing when you like go into games? So for us, like with we're going to basically be playing through the Imperial Armor 11 campaign series, which is Eldar versus IG and Space Wolves, and we're sort of adapting that to Eldar versus IG and Dark Angels. And we have like a unique take on the narrative to make it like applicable to the story that we're trying to tell. But those missions are awesome, and they require you to have, like you were talking about, dude, a well-rounded collection, because there's a mission where the Eldar are the defenders, and in a lot of, like, I've played, like in 8th edition, I played like a campaign that went on for like 6 months or something like that, and I was the attacker every single time. And I guarantee you, if you talk to like your average Eldar player who's been involved in like any kind of like long running narrative play, they're always in that attacker role. But in this campaign that we're playing, that was created by the Forge World team, there's like the second mission of the campaign, Eldar are the defenders. So that's been really cool, like diving into that from like a list building perspective and making sure that I'm managing my hobby time to make sure that I can play that mission well. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with like sort of like list tailoring to that when both players know what they're going into.
Yeah, what I want to talk about too is like, let's not give Forge World all the credit here, because we are the people who are basically creating a narrative on top of whatever they created.
Yeah.
You know, they set the framework for us, and then it's up to us to adapt to the current edition. Because what edition did the game come? I mean, did this campaign
Those
come
are
out
5th
for?
edition missions,
Yeah. So,
but they're really good missions.
well, this is, I think, what a lot of. Well, I shouldn't. I shouldn't enter into the controversy. I would just say, like, if you are not doing this type of thing where you're saying, hey, this was a really cool campaign, or this was a really cool setting, or I have one piece of terrain that really makes me want to play for this piece of terrain. I want this thing to be the star of the show. If you're not doing that for yourself, just do it, because I bet most of the people listening to this have felt that way at one time or another.
Yeah, like, dude, any random guy, like, I'm thinking of Mike, Mike Eller, who went to his wedding, all that stuff. He's got like 1,000,001 terrain pieces that he's like, I love this fucking piece of terrain.
Yeah.
You see this graffiti I did on this, that, and the
Yeah.
third? Like, and like, if you gave him the opportunity, he would make a whole mission just around that piece of terrain.
And he should.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what we're talking about, is that this is a campaign from an old edition that we haven't let go of, actually. So just for transparency, and this podcast is all about it, and I don't mean that in a sleazy corporate way. We have been planning this campaign ever since it came out. We
Yeah.
bought the book brand new, and we've been playing variants on this mission, this campaign, although never getting all the way through it.
Yeah.
So, again, for myself, like, this is us seeing this campaign through to the end, us like living the dream, this Warhammer dream that we've had for so many years. And yeah, we're going to be diving into this campaign and really embracing it. Something that I want to talk about is our board for this game.
Absolutely, dude. Take it away.
Okay, so I think we'll have a separate podcast about our old table, which I built. But essentially, what I want to talk about is what my brother was just talking about, what Alex was just talking about, in terms of like, how do you make the most out of what you've got in order to create something that's exciting, tells a story, is unique, is personalized for you and your army. And so what we've done together is to create a board which embraces essentially 3 different builds. It's one map and several pieces of terrain that feature in all of them. But we created all of these pieces of terrain in order to fit into this campaign that we're talking about. So we have what we call the wilderness board, which is like massive boulders and canyon like stones, trees, bushes, hills, lots of scatter stones, as well as some fungus, which we've recently introduced to the game. That's one board called the wilderness board. The second board is called the ruin outpost board, which is essentially an imperial outpost that the city section has been ruined, but there's a wall of martyrs and several different imperial installations which clearly designate like a civilized area of the world. And then lastly, we have the Eldar ruins, which I'll let my brother talk about a little bit.
Yeah, so like the Eldar ruins, like you can sort of sprinkle it in. It can be like the beginning of the campaign where the Eldar. So like the centerpiece is definitely the Webway Gate, and like you can feature that in like the first mission of an Eldar campaign, just as a terrain piece. You don't need to use all the stupid rules. Who cares about the rules? As Bill Belichick once said, "Stats are for losers." So it visually centers the narrative, and you have just like these tiny little bits of Eldar scatter terrain, and just incorporating those completely sets a tone for the campaign. This is an Eldar Maiden world, or this is a Corsair outpost, Ranger outpost.
Or is it both?
Am I
Oh, yeah.
am I gaining it or am I losing it?
You tell me, bro.
Yeah, so you just sprinkle those bits in to like the sort of wilderness setup, and all of a sudden you've got an Eldar theme. You have an Eldar board.
You have a story happening, which is like what we all aim. I think regardless of the type of games that you play, you have a story for your army. Like, you know the story of your commander. You were behind the lines, overseeing all of it. How do you make sense of it? Well, these pieces are a guide stone for you, and they will enable you to enjoy the game and embrace the history of the game and
The history of like the players' armies too.
absolutely. I've like rewritten in my mind the story of my army so many times just based on the games we're playing, and every time I play a game I say like, why is my army even here? Like, what are they really trying to do? And something that I feel like has even been missing from our games, and this is why I'm talking about transparency with the podcast and stuff, is saying like, we're really going to bring these pieces in. If I say we're going to recapture this mining installation, there's going to be a fucking crane. There's going to be some debris. There's going to be action on the tabletop that tells you, like, we're harvesting crystals, we're harvesting minerals.
Harvesting Blackstone. I've been researching for our campaign, actually, for this Vigilus / Nachman Gauntlet campaign. Yeah, bringing all that shit to life and having a story behind it is so important, and like why your army is there.
It makes a world of difference. It's not, it's no longer like you against the person across from the table. It's like your army needs to succeed or they're not going to capture this objective. And the objective is real. It's not a number just sitting on the board that is like from the bottom of a cereal box.
Yeah, just some random abstract token sitting on the middle of the board. That's like one of the things that I absolutely hated about Ninth Edition. It was like the whole concept of like scoring and objectives. It's so abstract. It feels like a game within a game, and that's not what 40K is about. Just putting random models on random spots on the board. No, if you're an Imperial Guard player, you're taking fucking ground for the Emperor, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you don't feel that in your terrain setup, in your missions, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why have you spent probably 10,000 fucking dollars on this army to put like an infantry, like a guard, like some random guardsman on like a quarter in the middle of the board? That's that's not what we're here for.
I would say the thing that we're looking to do with the podcast and the YouTube channel is to say, all right, all you rules doctors, you rules rocket scientists, like you have, you're exacting on every single rule. Why are we WYSIWYGing models and not WYSIWYGing the adventure, the mission,
The
the
objectives.
campaign, the objectives? Like, what is it that you're capturing when you land on number 5? Do we even know?
Yes.
Like, why do you care? Why do you care? The only reason you care is because you want to win the game. But your men, the men who are bleeding, dying, killing, slaughtering the enemies, they don't even know why they're doing it, and that's a bad leader. That's a sign of a bad commander. They don't even know why they're on the front line. You
Yeah.
need to know for your own glory and theirs as well. What are they there for?
Visually, you should.
It's a visual art. Like the whole thing is like we're going down to like, does he have the binoculars? Does he have the Melta mine? Does he have the command Vox as opposed to the regular Vox? Like we go down to all these details, but you don't care what 1, 2, and 3 mean?
Come on.
Let's go. We want it for you guys. We want it for your games and for your enjoyment. And we want it for our enjoyment. We're not hating on anyone over here. We're just telling you, like, this is what we're looking forward to. This is what we're embracing. And if you're into this kind of stuff, we hope you embrace it too.
Yeah, it's like I've played literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of just like standard pickup games. And like the games that I was most proud of, like I think of your local game store when this mom and her daughter are coming over and being like, this is amazing. What the hell are you guys doing? Like, my local store was called literally your local game store. Um, and like this I remember like this mom and this daughter came over for this game, and it was like I think it was in the middle of one of Mike Eller's like campaigns, and so I brought all of my terrain from home to set up like this Imperial fortification, like all of this stuff, like the Wraith Knight, all this, all these Eldar units taking ground against the Imperium. And they could absolutely just look at the table and just be like, I can see what's happening here. These like fancy space elves are trying to take over like this Imperial installation. And for me, that's like what I'm trying to do with both missions and terrain. Like at a glance, it's almost like a comic book or like a manga philosophy. You don't need to read the text. You should just be able to look at the board and know this is what is going on in this game. And that's what I really like about 10th edition, is that it's sort of just like all of this like super granular shit, flushing it down the drain, and just like, let's get back to basic 40k here. And uh, the rules are such that it sort of it lends itself naturally to that, with all of like the unit sizes just being very simple, weapon loadouts being very simple, the missions are just like, you can play these cards, or you can do the tournament thing, or you can do the narrative thing, which is like a completely separate entity. And I just feel like if you've been into this hobby for like a really long time and you're just not really like vibing on the whole pickup games, like what's the best way to score in the missions, like if you don't feel like engaging with all that, let's boil it down to something visual. Just like, does this game make sense visually? Like, what are we trying to achieve? Are the Eldar trying to defend this Webway gate? Am I trying to push past that Aegis defense line, that wall of martyrs, and seize Imperial ground and that type of thing? And with the missions that we're playing, like just very light adaptations from like what Forge World gave us in 2010, which is just crazy to think that was 13 years ago or more. Math genius.
Oh, he's working. He's working. Yeah.
It's just that kind of a thing. Let's tell a visual story. That's what's awesome about Warhammer, is that you're telling an amazing story like visually, and the dice are just sort of like adjudicating how each step in that story unfolds.
Yeah, I would say too, just that, all this stuff, if any aspect of this resonates with you, then take it back to the basics, okay? You are the hobbyist. You are the commander. It's your army. These are the men and women that die under your service. Like, you need to connect with the story of your army and make sure that it's something that connects with you. You connect with them, and then they connect with you, and you guys are like doing this together. And stop reading the latest tabloids on all of these things, and make sure that Warhammer is something that's happening for you in a way that is positive for you. That's definitely a big part of our mission here with Battle Brothers 40K, is like that the people that you're playing with are your brother. They are the people that are cheering you on for you to achieve excellence in 40K. And it can be for whatever reason or whatever, you can champion any one thing in 40K. There are so many options, but just make sure it's fulfilling to you. Make sure that that you're bringing that to every game, and I think that will just bring more enjoyment.
You know what, dude? This is totally unscripted, guys. Like, link up with your fucking battle brothers.
Yeah.
Find the people that want to play games the way that you want to play games, and talk with them about like, hey, dude, like, let's get back to basics here. Like, let's do some really classic 40K stuff. And you know what? I honestly feel like that is on the rise right now. Because if you guys go onto YouTube or, Instagram or whatnot, like what is like blowing up all over the place is like old school 40K, like second edition 40K. Like I'm thinking of the YouTube channel, Minisodes.
Great channel.
Totally check that channel out. Amazing painting. The guy's basically playing through like the core missions of like second edition. But find people that want to play the way that you want to play. Just have that conversation, and it'll give you what you're looking for in terms of the hobby. And I guarantee you, like, if you talk with like your buds out there, your true battle bros, they are looking for that too. It's just one of those things where people are just so used to this, like, oh well, this is what everybody else is doing. Forget all that. Like, have like an honest conversation. It's not like a big thing. Like, like, hey, why don't we play just like a mission that makes sense? Like, what are we trying to do in this battle? Like, what would these two factions honestly be fighting over? Let's just try that. And that's what we're doing.
I want to shout out to all the true bros like me, who, fortunately I have my brother, and he's my battle brother, and we're able to bounce these ideas off of each other. But outside of that, I don't have a battle brother. So I just want to tell everyone, like, if you don't have someone who you can play with, who you can connect with this way, connect with your battle bros on the front line. That's your army. Connect with them and think to yourself, like, what is it that I want my army to achieve, and revel in that.
Yeah.
and then bring that to the next adventure, the next campaign, the next battle, and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Here are my objective markers. You set the pace. You set the pace. And I guarantee you, you know, your opponents are going to be like, wow, that's an awesome objective. Or, wow, thanks for bringing so much depth to your, like, army backstory or whatever. Whatever it is that you choose to focus on, give it all you've got. Don't run yourself ragged chasing the next hot topic. Instead, like, you know, if you're gonna work yourself to the bone, do it for your boys. Do it for your guys with fucking mud on their boots, with blood pouring down. You know,
Out of
like
their eye sockets as they charge the foul ranks.
they're puking blood for you. God damn it! What have you done for them recently? No,
Yeah.
but seriously, like,
Yeah.
like whatever it was that got you into the hobby, which made you love your army, embrace that and bring that to your next game, and it's gonna be magnetic. It's gonna be like undeniable. People are gonna really enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it, which is the most important thing. So
Yeah.
that's something that we really want our listeners to enjoy and embrace.
Yeah, like, you know what? Like, this is a story I've told before, and I think it's like worth telling again. I like in fourth edition, I was like all the way back into 40K, but Eldar hadn't been released a codex in, like, I don't know how many years. They didn't even get a fifth edition codex. It went like 8 or 9 years without getting a codex. Like, they had to wait till sixth edition to get a fucking codex. And you know what I said? You know what? I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna make an army that I think is awesome. Like, I don't really like the state of Eldar right now. I'm gonna just get into the workshop, make the army that I want to have, and I'm gonna wait, because I know that, like, when another edition comes and I get my rules set, I'm gonna be able to, like, hit the ground running with an army that I'm very proud of. And there is nothing wrong with taking a step back from the game and getting your collection, your fucking boys, into a spot that you are excited about. Your collection is on point, your paint jobs are on point, whatever your skill level is, you're like, you know what, this looks good. This is the best I can do, and all my guys are painted. These units are chosen not out of necessity, but out of what I want to have. And when the time comes, you will find that battle brother that you're looking for to have awesome fucking games. So just, you know, if you have that battle brother now, get out there, have those games, have those awesome Warhammer experiences that, you know, you've been waiting for. And if you're not in that spot right now, just bide your time. Enjoy the other aspects of the hobby: building, painting, listening to podcasts, reading the books, all that stuff. And you will find somebody that wants to have games just the way that you do. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what this show is all about. That's what we hope you'll all embrace. And that's what we're looking forward to sharing with you. Our journey through the things we've discussed, the upcoming campaign, the release of 10th edition, and us, you know, sharing with you guys our experience of living through these things that we're talking about. My example of the crane is real. I've got a toy crane that...
This man has a toy crane, guys.
Listen, guys. I know you're on the edge of your seat already, but I've got a toy crane that I put over 150 little fucking rhinestones on. And if you didn't think this was exciting before, wait till you see this thing released. No, no jokes. No joke. I actually did that.
150 rhinestones
At least
on this
150,
bitch.
and we got more. I feel like there's something else has to happen. Okay, I gotta put on some Mod Podge. I gotta talk to you about it later. But really, just, you know, embrace the hobby from whatever angle you're passionate about, and shore up your forces so that they're ready to take all comers. And yeah, that's what we got to say to you today.
Yeah, and like that's what we have to say. But we're gonna put our money where our mouth is.
Oh, yeah.
And we're gonna be producing some video content for you guys to show you exactly what this looks like on the table. Because it's one thing to talk all this high and mighty stuff. It's another thing to put it into motion. And the two of us are right on the cusp of putting just the finishing touches on our collections to play a fucking super sick 5-game campaign. So, anyways, with that campaign in mind, the two of us have some serious hobby commitments, and I know I got to get my ass in gear. What about you?
All right. So, friends, listen. We have the Storm Sword that needs to be finished up. We're very near the finish line with it. And I won't put a day-by-day timeline on it, but I'm going to have that finished by the next podcast. Like I said, it's completely magnetized, and I have it very well on its way, but for sure my commitment for the next podcast is to have it completely painted. I just want to talk real quick about what my brother Alex was mentioning earlier, which was like whatever your level of painting, like, you know, you guys all heard me mention when I was talking about the Storm Sword, the Warlord Titan. And you know who I'm mentioning there. Shout outs to Squidmar. A lot of their stuff they're doing is absolutely head and shoulders above me. But what I want to do now is say, like, hey, where am I at? What am I doing? How can I get this to the finish line for me? And that's my goal currently. So I won't bore you with the details, but finishing that Storm Sword is like my hobby commitment for the next adventure, as I always say.
The next quest. Yeah, for me, as a man who's painted many Corsairs in his day, it's shameful to say I have not painted up the current Corsair, the GW release, not the Forge World release. And I've got 10 Corsairs I absolutely have to finish. I've assembled 4 of them, and I've got 6 more I got to build and paint. But those models are glorious. It's been a joy to paint them thus far. So I just got to get 10 Corsairs done, and I'm done. So I will be completely ready to go in the campaign that we've got planned, which is going to involve me fielding my Wraith host and all sorts of other super fucking exciting classic Eldar builds. But finishing 10 Corsairs, that's a thing of joy. So that's my commitment for the next show.
All right, guys, those are our hobby goals for the next episode. What are yours? We really do want to hear about it. Let us know in the comments section below, whether you're on YouTube or Instagram or any other social media platforms. Thank you all for listening to the first episode of Battle Brothers 40K. I'm Vanjel.
I'm Alex.
Wishing you guys glory in your hobbying, storytelling, and gaming. This is Battle Brothers 40K. We'll see you guys in the next one.